Hello and welcome to our Conscious Leaders Circle, where we meet once a month to support each other through these epic and changing times, to be more grounded, energized, and focused, and live a centered, connected, and conscious life. And today I'm honored to have our very special friend, Master Astrologer, Richard Geer, who has decades of experience in not only understanding the stars, but in helping you align yourself with the stars to achieve your highest potential in life. And today, Richard is going to help us connect with what the astrological forecast is for 2025, so that you can help navigate your own thoughts, ideas, choices, actions for your highest and best year. So, without further ado, welcome Richard, and welcome everyone to our Conscious Leader Circle. I'm so glad you joined us today.
Mm. Yeah, I'm going to talk on several levels here. There's a whole thing happening in the world in general, which I'll share about, and there's also each of our individual lives and where we fit into that story, because we're sharing a story. The great visionary activist astrologer Caroline Casey, talks about that we're all co-dreaming what's going on here on the planet. And there's a story that we're sharing, that we're all living together, but each of us from a different perspective. And so I mentioned we're coming to the end of Capricorn over the next day and change. And each month, the first month of winter, okay, Capricorn is about, okay, really look at your life. Are you organizing all your energies and your day-to-day disciplines and habits for maximum happiness, for the life that you came here for, the life that you can really stand behind to go, yeah, yeah, I am the executive, of this life. I'm also in tune with something higher than me, but I'm the producer. I'm the overall in charge person. And that willingness to go, okay, what needs to change? What needs to be more of? What needs to be less of? So I can totally own this life, this year. And so we're coming to the end of that by tomorrow, the 19th, at let's see here. When do we go into Aquarius? The 19th, your time, it would be 3 p.m. Mine is 4. I'm in Halifax. Um, and um, and so I really want to get into, because I'm very inspired by this year. My 45-year colleague, Ariel Harper Nave, astrologer, was talking about how unique this year is, because like the 4 outer planets are all changing signs. And so the whole story of what we're living individually and collectively is radically changing. And what's going to happen is the planets go forward into the next sign, then they come back for a few months, and then they go permanently into the next sign. And so I really want to get into that, about what's really going on right now. And so I'm going to give a planetary context, and then we'll look at the personal context too, okay? In terms of the story that we're all living. And there's been a lot of um, and so a Pluto return is like echoes 248 years ago, okay? And similar with the Uranus will echo 84 years ago, etc. And so Pluto is in Aquarius for about 20 years. It's just been going in and out for the last year and change. For the first time since the American and French Revolutions, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of the Rights of Man in Paris, which was written by Lafayette with help from Jefferson, who was there at the time, where they totally reinvented the world. They let in the idea that nobody has the right to lord over us. We, not divine right of kings, but divine right of us. And that the only reason the government exists is to support our well-being. And if it gets in the way, we totally have the right to overthrow it or change it. That was huge, absolutely huge. The idea we all have a right to freedom of speech, freedom of the press, etc. It was the foundation of democracy and individual liberty, etc. This is the first time we've returned to Pluto and Aquarius. And it was also the Industrial Revolution, the Enlightenment, the idea we could just reinvent, we could invent machines that would do things, we could invent new technologies, we could understand what's going on, we could rethink everything and invent it. And the idea that no one has the right to lord over us. And so all hierarchies are going to be in question now the way they were back then. And in this case, it's mainly economic hierarchies. Money pretty much rules. And so and so the next 19 years, essentially, if I were lording over people, I'd be trembling right now. And and so I remember watching an executive recently just trembling and knowing that he's on shaky ground scared a lot of them, when I'm not applauding it, but when the health insurance executive got killed, there's going to be a dark side, okay? And there's going to be a very bright, amazing, inventive, complete reinvention of the world, and it begins this year. It's all been a foundation for that. And so that's the Pluto return to Aquarius. We have Uranus return. Um, of several levels. I've been saying that in some ways this is on a global level, this is the darkest time since June 1940 when France fell to the Nazis and the Brits barely got out alive. And I just looked it up today. It's literally to the exact degree the Uranus return of the fall of France in 1940. And just like the U.S. Civil War was the Uranus return of the Declaration of Independence. It's like, hey, okay, we're talking about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What's this slavery business about? That doesn't fit, you know? And so, and then the next time was D-Day when the democracies invaded Europe to take it back from the Nazis. And the next time, the Uranus return of 19, of D-Day and the Declaration of Independence is over the next couple of years. And so it's a complete reinvention of the world. And I know it looks like a pessimistic time to some people. This is all necessary for the contrast. People need to get clear, and sometimes you got to let dark forces overreach themselves. Just as in the American Revolution, Samuel Adams, he kind of goaded George III to overreach himself, which would create the revolution, you know? And so we have to let it all be. We have to let it all go and find our place in it. And so, but the big one this year is um, Saturn, the practical planet, which has a 30-year cycle, and Neptune, the divine love and compassion and unity, and we're all one planet, um, are both going into Aries this year. And the Saturn thing is so amazing. It's just a 30-year cycle. Whenever Saturn goes into Aries and begins the new 30-year cycle, a brand new entity comes in and changes everything. Last time, late 90s, the internet and the cell phone. Come on. Totally changed everything, right? You know, the previous time was the counterculture, Haight-Ashbury and all of that, and all of a sudden there's another way of living. I'm hearing Dylan, keep it in your mind and not forget that it is not he or she or them or it that you belong to. And though the masters make the rules for the wise ones and the fools, I got nothing more to live up to. That the sovereignty is in you. Your connection to source is your sovereignty and your ultimate value. And so, I mean, those last two things totally reinvented the world. The previous time was just before World War II, when all this aggression was happening that triggered the war, which ultimately triggered the end of this macho militaristic thing, that embodied itself most in Germany and Japan, but it was everywhere. And in many ways it still is, hiding behind the power of money. And so when Saturn goes into Aries, it's time for boldness. Okay? And it's time to go jump out and make it happen. Just make it happen. But there's a transition here, okay, from Pisces to Aries, which I want to get into, and that's for each of us individually. Neptune going into Aries for the first time since the U.S. Civil War. Neptune is compassion. Neptune is higher spiritual values. And so there's a tendency towards the yin, towards the divine mother kind of energy. But when Neptune, once every 165 years, goes into Aries, you got to be bold. Your compassion, I'm thinking of, Martin Luther, here I stand, I could do no other, God help me. You want to barbecue me, okay, but I'm going to follow my conscience no matter what. And so Neptune in Aries for 14 years and Saturn in Aries for 2.5 years, and then being together for the first time, the higher values, compassion, spirituality energy, and the practical nuts and bolts energy are coming together for the first time since the Gorbachev era and the end of the Cold War. Compassion and the practical structures of life. We ended the Cold War. Okay, changed everything, right? And so, way I want to describe this transition, but we've still got quite a few months left of the Pisces energy with Saturn and Neptune. The Pisces energy is, for us, it's attune yourself to your highest values. Attune yourself to divine love. I'm hearing the I Ching, one who acts from these deep levels makes no mistakes. Where you get in tune with the muse. It's kind of like Elvis one time had a recording session. And obviously the most expensive people, the most expensive, studio, he's there and let's go. And Elvis insisted on singing nothing but gospel the first day. That's too perfect, right? It's like, no, I got to get in tune first and then we'll record. That's what we're talking about. you know, and reaching that place of divine connection, which looks like passivity. George, whether it's I think it was Joshua in the Bible and George Washington in the Revolution, he retired to his tent and just prayed, just connected, and then pulled it off, you know. And so that ability to be still and to listen and to feel and to make sure that you're coming from that perfect, that surrendered place. It's kind of like one time, I've spent years living on nothing, essentially, hitchhiking through 39 states and 6 countries. And one night I was sort of homeless in Providence at 2:30 in the morning. And I'm like, okay, all right, what's next? And I said, well, I feel good. I'm in tune. Give me some service. So 2:30 in the morning, I see a couple guys sitting on a corner, and something leads me to them, and it's like, don't have any motive. Be full, be complete, be whole, be spirit. Okay? And we have a beautiful connection. They invite me home, say, come back anytime. I sign a couple up for the Hunger Project, or bring a couple to a program on meditation. There was service at 2:30 in the morning for me. Okay? There's always a perfect next thing, even if I'm homeless, even if I got no money, even if, there's nobody around, you know, and so that ability to be so in tune that all that matters is divine love. All that matters is that I'm bringing that perfection to the world just by being in tune. Or as Gregory Corso, the beat poet, put it, standing on a street corner, waiting for no one is power. And so let us really attune this year, okay, and a bit of next year too, so that the first signal, the first action, the first thought comes from source. And again, one who acts from these deep levels makes no mistakes. And of course, we're going to make mistakes, but to know that coming back to that place, coming back to that zone, makes everything work. And all of a sudden, the world becomes friendly to us as long as we understand where the sand traps are. And, you know, we're unseducible when we're in touch with that because we are whole, we are complete. And so to me, that's what Pisces is about. Be divine love, be one with the all of nature, be one with the invisible domains, be one with humanity. No judgments towards anybody. And that's what the age of Pisces, the last 2,000 years, are trying to teach us. With the Christ and the Buddha, and the Buddha was before that, but what's called Mahayana Buddhism, the idea of being here for everyone, not just personal liberation. And so, but when you're in the surrendered place, you're not entangled. You're unseducible. And there are so many seductions, including the do-gooder impulse. And a lot of us are high enough souls that that's our main seduction, is the attempt to fix, solve, change, improve, help, teach, heal. Yeah, that's all great. But let the healing start with the total acceptance of what is and the total surrender to what is and the non resistance to what is. And then the perfect creation comes through us. And this is the journey from Pisces to Aries. Okay. It's a wonderful time for new beginnings. As I said, the last time was the end of the Cold War. And so now it's the chance to reinvent this world is profound. But I'm also talking to us as individuals, right? You're to really, especially as we end Capricorn, to really look at, okay, am I organizing my life in such a way that my organizing principle is in tune with my higher values? Every year we can look at that as we come to the end of Pisces. If I am, then as we go into Aquarius, intuition kicks in. Freedom kicks in. Anything goes kicks in. But anything goes is dangerous if you're not in touch with your discipline. What is your discipline? Only you know. How do you know your soul's at peace with it? You look in the mirror and go, "Yeah, I stand behind you. You're on. You're on." You know, all of your flaws, you're on, and you feel that sense of security and solidity. Capricorn is cardinal Earth. Cardinal means action. Earth is physical. Capricorns, they don't mess around with reality. Okay, they make it happen. Period. Even though if they may look very spiritual, like a Martin Luther King, Capricorn, Joan of Arc, Capricorn, but they make it happen. They own, they have a sense of, the higher Capricorn has a sense of their mission, their selfless mission. The lower Capricorn is trying to control everything, in a way that, you know, gets in the way, gets in the way, you know. And so as we approach, Aquarius and Pisces, which are ruled by these outer planets, Uranus and Neptune, which rule the old age, last 2,000 years of Pisces, which is about us learning divine love. We had 2,000 years to learn divine love. Okay. and that we're all one and compassion and all of that. And we did all right, but we need to bring it to completion. And now we're going into Aquarius, which is divine intelligence. We are all creators. We are all inventors. And when Uranus was discovered in 1781, it was the year the U.S. beat the British, and democracy was now established. It was established on the earth. Uranus was invention. It was an explosion, the Industrial Revolution, the Enlightenment, questioning everything. As Voltaire from that era said, one who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. And so that ability to question everything, every cruelty, every prejudice, every idea about everything, so that we can truly invent. Instead of resisting what is, we create what wants to be. As Ken Kesey put it, don't don't play in their movie. Get them to play in your movie. And they invented a new movie back way of humanity living life that has the maximum dignity, freedom, sovereignty for us. Well, we know that's what wants to come in. And those who are pessimistic, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? To you? What's going to happen through you? What are you bringing? Are you in tune? Are you receiving that higher intelligence, that genius, that freedom, that creativity? Are you receiving that beautiful peace that does not depend on your personality or the world? It's yours. It's yours. And there's a Jesus quote, fear not, little flock, for it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. You can change the patriarchal language if you want. The power loves to give us all the beauty. We just have been distracted. And so as we attune this year, then what I think of in this transition from Pisces to Aries as the new era begins, um, even the shortest cycle is the 30-year cycle, this new 30-year cycle. Last time it was the internet and the cell phone. The previous time it was a whole new way of living that took over a lot of the world. What's it this time? What's it going to be this time? As we look at that, as we receive the most beautiful vision of what wants to be, and then we act, you know? I think of, there's one time I was sitting on the lawn, the big lawn in front of the gorgeous marble state house in Providence, Rhode Island. And I'm just sitting there in the grass meditating. And one minute, it's all one. I'm just one with it all. It's just one being. And the next minute, next second, I'm me in a body, distinct from the world. Pisces, it's all one. Aries, I'm me in a body with a unique contribution. What am I? It's time to take the stage. What am I bringing to the stage? Aries. Aries is about boldness. It's cardinal fire, acting from energy, from inspiration, from desire, from courage, from mojo. That's what fire is mojo. Air is the mental, water is the feeling, earth is the five senses and the so-called physicality. But fire is the motivation. You can't have fire without something changing. You can't burn and not change, okay? And so fire is that impulse to bring the juice, to bring the aliveness, to take the stage. I remember one time I was at a family reunion, and it was getting kind of blah, you know? And then all of a sudden, heard it through the grapevine, comes on the radio, I just jump up and dance, and everybody jumps up and dances. That's Aries. Let's move now. And so that's what's coming. Now that has a dark side. Oh, babes. Neptune could be delusion. Everybody's got to join my religion or they're going to die. You know, and that's there. You're seeing it's all going to come to the fore during this period. You know, and uh, and and uh, and so okay, and so like for example, this impulse that comes from spirit. I've just noticed the signal here. My best friend and acid guru and teacher from way back who's now gone, an impulse came. I'd written stories about him that he really liked 20 something years ago. And something said, look up his twin daughters and send them those stories about their father. And one didn't respond, but the other one, who just left a little note on the corner here that I was looking at, she has really connected to me and bonded. And I said to her, I feel like you're a niece, if you don't mind. And she said, that's great. So one impulse from spirit can change your whole life, right? And that ability to create from spirit is the invincible power. And we are bringing that to the world. We're bringing to this current situation what Gorbachev brought to the late 1980s. A brand new world, you know, and we need it, obvious. But to be at peace with the idea that the dark's going to get darker, okay? So, and because it has to play its hand, okay? And so the ability to let it be, I'm watching myself be outraged at some really slimy Senate hearings in the US right now, and going, and okay, notice your outrage, notice let it be, but stay still. Just let it pass through you until you're no longer reactive. You've accepted the darkness as part of the movie. Then you're no longer reacting. You're coming from source. You're bringing something here purely from source and let it stand. In order to do that, we have to get beyond the impulse. It's the do-gooder impulse, which actually is very high at the lower levels of human consciousness. Do-gooder impulse is nice, you know, but at the higher levels, it's actually a barrier. You know, the fool tries to do good and is therefore not good. Meaning that which is pure and from source is beyond ideas of good and evil. It just is of itself. You just bring it with no attachment to whether someone else gets it, whether someone else agrees, no matter what you get back. Again, like Martin Luther, he just put his butt on the line, and very good chance he was going to get barbecued, except he didn't because he let spirit guide him, you know. And so that is the boldness that is coming in. And it's going to be, and that is delicious if we understand that this world's going to be unrecognizable in 2, 3 years. Okay. And the dark is going to get darker, but we're bringing something else, but not in opposition to anything, you know? And so that ability, anyway, so that in our own lives to begin to look at the inner kid impulse, the puppy dog impulse. I want to play. I want to play. I want something new. I want life to always be new. You know, I want to feel that breakout feeling, and I want to hear my own voice and I want to really bring it. So that's what's happening too. And then within the next 2 years or so, we had, as I said, we had the Declaration of Independence, which is not just about the U.S. It's about the idea that we all have rights, okay, and the governments only exist for us, period, not vice versa. And that it goes to many levels, Big Daddy God who's going to send you to hell if you don't follow our rules, okay? That idea of spirituality began to be replaced by we are the light. The only thing we obey is the light inside, and that is our source. So, anything else I want to say before we throw it open? Um, Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter, Gemini. We're also in the middle of this 20-year cycle, Jupiter and Saturn, which brings a new story every 20 years. You had the 60s. You had the 80s, Reagan, Thatcher, and the conservative counterreaction. We had the 2000s war on terror story. It played us out. We had the 2020 and that COVID story, and again, it's always bigger than what it looks like, And so that story is now beginning to turn into another story. It's the relationship between Jupiter and Saturn, and they're doing this dance right now, where Jupiter's looking at how do we bring our highest spiritual goals and values to the world, from Pisces, Saturn, Pisces, Jupiter, and Gemini. How do we communicate it? And then also the delusional, fanatical folks, the darker side of Pisces, saying how do we bring our world into form and communicate it, which is going to be great because then we have a chance to have a real confrontation of different worlds, of what wants to be and the ability to communicate just to all kinds of people. Like my proud and especially when Uranus is going to go into Gemini for 7 years, it's going to be brilliant new communications and new inventions. The last time Uranus was in Gemini, for better or worse, was the invention of the atom bomb, which again changed everything. Okay. And so the spirit of invention is going to be very powerful. And so about the art of communication. My proudest I ever got in social media was, of course, from a conservative, right? Doesn't mean anything for someone in my things like me to get a like, but to get a like from a conservative makes me happy, right? And all I said was, that if um, an employer pays the employee less than the value that they got from the employee, they're stealing. Okay. And he gave me a like. Now, I didn't try to tell him that that's just Marx's theory of a surplus value. Marx, you know, you got to speak his language, you know. And so, anything else I want to say? Neptune, Saturn, Pluto. And so, when all the outer planets all change signs at roughly the same time, okay, which Ariel said she's never heard of that happening ever, you know, and she's a veteran like me, 40 odd years in this thing. Then it's a complete change of the story. So let's be open and leave ourselves reach into the unmanifest, which is what creators do. You know, passive people live in the facts. And fact comes from a past participle in Latin. It means that which has been done or made. It masquerades as the present, but it's only the present if we're passive. Whereas powerful people live in the potential. Okay. They live in the wind, not the leaf in the wind. Okay. The wind controls the leaf. Okay. And so potential, powerful, um, potent, what's the other word? Power. Yeah. There's another word in there. A possibility. It's all the same word. Okay. Powerful people live in the possibility. That's what makes them creators. And that's what the Age of Aquarius is about. Is the last 2,000 years was how to be a lover, a universal lover. Love your enemies. You know, love the whole show. You know, that and so and it's completing itself, but it needs the new age. The um whereas divine intelligence is about literally being one with the creator, being, feeling, knowing, receiving the intuitive mind, the higher mind, the mind that comes out of nowhere, that mind that's not a figure out mind. It's not a, well, this worked in the past mind. I mean, yeah, keep that. You got to remember not to put your hand in the fire, you know, and look both ways before you cross the street. You know, that's the robot mind. And we need it, of course. You know, I had to learn English, you know, and so the robot mind serves my creative mind, right? And so, but that's the key. The robot mind should not be in the driver's seat. The creative mind should be in the driver's seat. And now I'm hearing from Revelations, for behold, I make all things new. That's the creator. Or as Werner Erhard put it, one creates from nothing. If you try to create from something, that's just changing something. So in order to create something, you first have to create nothing. And in the Tarot, which ties in with the Kabbalah and the Hebrew alphabet and all that, the first of the major arcana is the Fool. And he's numbered 0. Okay? And he's always stepping off a cliff. Because when you follow intuition, you're stepping off a cliff. You know, any inventor will tell you that. You know, any cutting edge scientist will tell you that. You know, and so uh, this is my sense and my attempt to inspire people and empower people about all of this. To look in your life almost like a child and go, okay, what? And to look in your life from a point of view of being powerful. Not how do I figure this thing out, but how is this perfect? And what does this want to become? And that will trigger the creative mind, where you sit there to feel the fire impulse, the desire for quality, the desire for beauty, the desire for joy, to be it and to share it, you know, and to look into that impulse, because looking into that impulse unites our desire with the desire of the omnipotent. And when our desire is one with the desire of the omnipotent, we are unstoppable because we see everything as for us, you know, um, no matter what happens. You know, I'm hitchhiking, the cops say to me, if you're still there in 15 minutes, you're going to jail. All right, fine. If I go to jail, I'm going to jail, you know, and just feel, you know, and let everything before us. Okay, you know, to at the instant a crisis hits, the hormones, the lower chakra hormones kick in, right? Fear, etc. To go, okay, what does this want to become? How is this perfect and where is it leading me? So this is a beautiful, beautiful year for total reinvention and for not just one reinvention, like catching a fish, but learning how to fish. Getting very intimate with the invention muscle, intimate with that which knows that joy always wants to come. And the joy is beyond pleasure and pain. You know, It's another level, just like an artist can turn any experience into a beautiful song, you know? And who am I as artist? And how willing am I to see myself as totally rich, totally powerful, totally safe, and to know myself, and I think of it as three levels, that there's me that's an animal body, that's earth. There's me that is the light, that is pure consciousness forming itself into a thought, a feeling, an action, you know. And then there's me that is an individual soul. And that's what the 60s were largely about, is each of you has a voice. Each of you has a way of being. Find it, live it. Don't be afraid to express it. Let people know you as for who you really are, and then you'll find your real friends and your real allies. And so that I am the light, that's the sun level. And the moon is I am the dreamer of this dream within which my body moves. Just as the moon surrounds the earth, I have a dream that surrounds my body, and I can own that dream. I can be that dream. I am living that dream. Can I really read the signals in my life, which is what an astrologer does, you know? Lydia was asking me to uh, share, New Year's discount from my readings, I give it 20, 25 off from my usual 150, which is very cheap to begin with. Um, and for the next month for these folks. And but to own, I support people in owning their dream and in living their dream. Okay, astrology is only a tool, you know, and astrology gives the line from Eliot. We had the experience but missed the meaning. Astrology is a journey into the meaning, into what is it your soul's really wanting? What is your unique heroism, your unique genius? And that's why I always say, don't believe or disbelieve. I don't care about you believing or disbelieving. I care, all that matters is what does it trigger in you? I'm just throwing stuff at you for fun, and just to have an enjoyable experience with the reading. But I'm here to trigger all these places inside you. I'm not just talking to your mind, I'm talking to your entire being. I've taught, and all of you, and each planet is a different part of your being. Your mind is Mercury, your emotions are the moon, your will and hunger for autonomy is the sun, etc. Your practical side, what makes you feel secure and solid, that's Saturn. Your aspirations, what am I enthused about? What do I really believe in? Jupiter. And they all come together to form you you know, and to get to know your archetypes, your gods and goddesses, all the parts of you. And really, I'm telling you what your higher self already knows. And my job is to trigger your higher self, to trigger that knowing, to trigger that genius, to trigger that inspiration so that you celebrate your own life. That's why I do it, you know. So I think that's a mouthful. And I'd
Thank
love
you.
to have any questions
Oh, thank
or
you, Richard. That was magnificent as always. Let me just go to gallery. And I think we can have a whole masterclass. Everything that you talked about is very powerful and um, helps us connect with our own inner self within the context of the collective. And as we look within and find the strength and courage to know thyself and to follow our intuition, and as you're saying, to co-create with the divine, as we journey towards reclaiming our sovereignty. And so sovereignty has subtle different meanings for all of us, but it's the return to our wholeness of body, mind, and spirit. And the responsibility of that for ourselves, by ourselves, with ourselves, and how do we share that? And you were saying how we're always supported, and we are, especially when we connect with source, the infinite energy of the universe. So I'd love to hear how everyone here was activated, what insight that came to you during Richard's incredible sharing of 2025 and how we can live our best life in 2025. Or if you have any questions for Richard, let's open it up. And who would like to go first? Don't be shy. Anyone? Tanya. Tanya, okay. Where, okay. I'll there, unmute. Just unmute, Tanya.
All right. Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear
Hmm.
you. Thank you, Tanya.
Wonderful. Thank you, first of all, so much, Lydia, for hosting this event, and for my dear, many decade long brother, Richard, for speaking to all of us today. I, as always, feel very um, not only grateful, but a sense of relief when I hear you speak. There's the place that you're coming from when you speak is so loving and reminds us that even though we have such individuated lives that are only we can know and only we can live, that there is something greater that connects us, not just because we're all part of Earth, which we are, like cells in the organism, but that connects us beyond the physical in a very clarifying way. Like there's this movement, not only of the planets that, of course, our planet is part of, but those pulls, those energetic pulls into specifically action this year. And I've been really feeling that. Like it's moving from a time, as you were saying, like with Pisces, where we remember that connection into and oneness, bless you, and wholeness, but also this place where it's time to step up and act. And the thing that really struck me is about that discipline. It was a very quick little thing that you said, but it was like bam, it just hit me, which was, this idea of freedom. I'm always looking for freedom. I'm sure we all are. What does that really feel like? What does that look like? And what does that mean? And as a younger person was like doing whatever I want when I want it, right? But when you talked about discipline, like, and that might look different for each of us, what are those practices where we know when we've done
Hmm.
them, we're embodied, we're here, we're with us, and we're regulated, we're able to actually hear that higher CEO that needs to be behind the driver's seat? Because without those practices, I am screwed. I am not able to access that place of the creator. So the discipline piece is also an action. It's also part of that action. And I'm already feeling, as this year began, a renewed sense of uh, ability and energy to get behind the disciplines that will help me to then surrender. So I really feel so reinforced by what you said. I guess it's not a question, but
Hmm.
it's just a lot of gratitude for that specific piece. It just seemed to um, solidify in my understanding. So anyway, I love you. You know that. And thank you for indulging my voice.
Great to hear you.
Well, thank you, Tanya. That was beautifully insightful and I'm sure resonates with all of us. And I'll give Richard a chance to elaborate. But one thing for all of us to keep in mind is that when we decide to take action towards sharing who we are in an authentic way, we're always able, because one of the principles of the universe is everything changes. And so, without exception, we're always changing, whether we're conscious of it or not. So, we're always able to create change in our lives, whether it's a thought, consciousness, insight, which is a type of interaction, or external action. So, many times when I am
Mm,
coaching clients, they'd say, well, I couldn't do it in the past. I don't know if I'm able. But you are
mm,
always able, because the change is the essence of the universe. We're always changing. So if we're conscious of the fact that we are in always in a state of metamorphosis, in a state of change, and then how do I want to implement change in a way that supports me and the collective? Then we're in a flow of being able to do it, or that discipline that you talk about. And that discipline is to be the disciple, right? To honor oneself from the highest level. and then implement. It can be incremental, right? It doesn't have to be massive. It can be micro steps that are in your flow of manifestation and the ability to change. So, Richard, anything you'd like to share?
Yeah. Without revealing anybody's chart, Tanya, has a natural sense of organization and responsibility and the ability to commit to so many things and get so many things done and so many different ways of contributing to the world and so many disciplines through which to do that, you know, that the Saturn domain, the domain which rules Capricorn, the domain of, okay, how do I own this? How do I make this happen? Is very powerful. But sometimes Saturn will pull us in too much into the form world. Okay. But beyond Saturn are what I call the three superpowers. And when they run the show and Saturn simply organizes the show, then it all works. And those of us who live, up until 1781, you know, um, uh, people only knew as far as Saturn. Okay, as you make a living, you have some kids, and but once Uranus and then Neptune in the mid 1800s, when the working class rose up, and then Pluto 1930, came in, then all of a sudden the chance to live on a whole other level, to live as master souls began to come in, you know, and so. The discipline, so I think what Tanya's talking about, the discipline of attuning, to always make sure you're doing that one too. And that the attuning, the bliss, and bliss is subtle. Jesus said it's like a mustard seed in the beginning. You can barely even feel it, but once you go into it, it becomes more real than the universe, and then you're cooking. When your first foot is in infinity, as my teacher would say, if you want to push a car, you need one foot outside the car. Okay. And so we have one foot outside the form world, kind of like a quarterback has to have that back foot to throw that long pass, right? If we're anchored in infinity, then we are totally powerful in the finite world, but it's a whole other discipline than what we're taught completely. What's that line get in the way of my education? You know. And so the learning of continuing to come home. My friend Ariel, just gave me a Zafu, which is a really firm meditation cushion that keeps your back straight because it has just the right lift on the butt to make it above the knees to allow you to rest in a straight back. And it was such an incredible gift, 'cause I don't have to always adjust the pillows, I can just sit on this firm Zafu. And to prioritize that, I got to go home all the time, every second. Come home. You're in the bank line, come on home inside. You're at a red light, come on home inside. You're talking to someone who's gone through a lot of problems and you need to just listen. Just keep breathing and feeling and holding space while you're with them. Be doing the internal work while you're just being with them. And when we build that discipline, and we're no longer seeking happiness from the world. I mean, I'll take it. you know I'll take a nice meal, a nice kiss, and a nice whatever the world's got to offer. Okay, but it's not my source. In fact, when I'm in that place inside, in fact, I'm going to be outrageous here for a second. um, 3 times in my life I just closed my eyes in a public space and like a dance or whatever, and just meditated and got into a beautiful groove and was beaming completely in that gorgeous place, and opened my eyes, and there's a woman I've never met smiling at me, wanting to get close to me. 3 times. It's not the usual way to pick up girls, right? Close your eyes and meditate. I mean, that's how powerful this thing is. It's a whole other idea. What is power? Power is uniting with the infinite one who loves you. I'm getting passionate here, you know? Um, and when we really understand that, and it turns into a desire, it turns into a rich, rich, rich desire to come home and be home. Because when we come home, we are home for others. They just hang out with us, and all of a sudden, you know? And that's more important than any action, any thought, anything. And so when we're linked with that, we understand that, heaven is not pie in the sky when you die. It's right here, right now. You know? And I remember one last thing. I was, years ago, I was on the Boulder Mall in Colorado. And I was talking with a dogmatic Christian, right? And he was getting in his head doing the arguing thing. And I just looked right into him and I said, "Stay in your heart." And he said, "What?" I said, "Stay in your heart. If you lose the love, you lose everything." And at that time I was connected to this teacher, Guru Maharaji. And he goes, Guru Maharaji, and immediately two of the devotees walk right across the mall and go, that's right, and walk on. That's how magical life is when you're in tune. That's what the Creator wants to give us, is a totally magical life if we will do the discipline of attunement. The practical life will fall into place. And that's the Sermon on the Mount. When I speak of Jesus, I'm not speaking religiously. I'm speaking master teacher. Okay? Just like Lao Tzu or the Buddha. And the Sermon on the Mount is saying that you can't serve two masters. You're either chasing after the things of the world or you're attuning to the things of the spirit. There's no neutral ground here. Okay? It's one or the other, you know? And if you choose first to attune to spirit, everything else will come to you. Now, that's a technology, not a philosophy. You know, it is something to be tested out like a scientist. Does it work or not? Is it true or not? And all I'm trying to do is to trigger people's knowing of their path. And that knowing is a slippery little thing because it's like the muse. You know, you're writing a poem and all of a sudden you get stuck. Well, be stuck. Put down the pen. Be stuck. Just hang. Just feel. Just ponder. Ah, I got it. You know, it's that discipline of remembering to be in the timeless place while you play in time and space. That rhymes. Okay. See the muse, you know, and let it write the song of your life. You know, let it bring you to really get used to the idea of what I call being a spiritual trillionaire. That's what's being asked. The last 2,000 years was largely this, you know, the word sacrifice means to make sacred, you know? And so that last 2,000 years, there was a lot of self-abnegation in the age of Pisces. You know, hair shirts and, you know, monasteries and etc. Whereas the new age is saying, listen, as long as you have the attitude of service, Christ washing the feet of the disciples, as long as you have the attitude of service, your selfishness is um, healthy selfishness. It's because at the heroic level, which is where we're playing, because the hero has one foot in pure love and total courage that only comes from source, you know, and has the other foot in the personality and the body and time space. When we're at the heroic level, selfish and unselfish merge
Well, it's
because your
honoring of
soul can
self,
only be
right?
satisfied.
It's the honoring of
It
self,
can only,
Richard. It's that's the merge. As I honor myself, I honor the whole, right?
yes, exactly. Exactly. And so that you reach a place where nothing can satisfy you except being in tune with source. And then I realized, you know, the hard way that, you know, meditating 10 hours isn't necessarily going to do it for you. You have to do what the meditation says to do. Whereas I'm fond of saying if you're really in tune, you'll come out of meditation just in time to turn off the rice. You know? And so,
I like
you
that one.
know, and that's why I love people. And I'm always looking, you know, Virgo's always quality control, and I'm always looking for that didn't really turn out the way I liked. Okay, anything I would have done different, you know, and so to continually to expect, because the rich person expects to be able to do what they want. Okay, I'm going to fly to Fiji next week, you know, no question, I got the money, you know, but we need to understand that we are totally rich if we're in tune with the owner and giver and mover of all. And that's what humans are for, is the merger of creator and creature. I
Mhm.
mean, I got this creature body, doing great for 74. You know, I got this creature body, but it supposedly has an expiration date. Everyone else is croaking around me. I hope I'm not the next, you know. But it looks like this body is finite. You know, it's changing a bit all the time. Okay, it looks like it's finite. All right, that's one level of me. But there's this other level of me that is this radiant, pure consciousness that I can shape into anything at any time. That's friggin' power, you know.
Yeah,
But
that
what do you want to shape it into?
no, for sure, Richard, that is power. And, to be able to realize the abundance of the universe and for us to realize that abundance is ours for the taking. We've had 13,500 years of separation and disconnect and lack and perception of struggle, and then enter into power through what you're saying, pausing. And Tanya mentioned that I saw your chat message, Tanya, to act and pause, reflect, be still, be present with yourself, listen to the messages, co-create with the divine through then merging and then applying oneself in that beautiful process of the inner so is the outer, and then the merging of the oneness within ourselves, and the oneness of us in the collective. There is no separation. You know, all the ancient teachings say that the greatest source of suffering is the concept of separation. So when I really understand that, not just intellectually, but viscerally, that I am in the frequency of all, and I have an individual consciousness at this time within the collective consciousness, then of course I'm powerful, and of course I have abundance, and of course I'm supported. But anybody else? We're getting up to almost 12 o'clock. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Tanya. Anybody else have questions or would like some guidance from Richard? And we're going to soon go into our 5 to 7 minute a long distance Reiki session if you'd like to stay on. And if Richard, I don't know if you prepared or would like to do a short guided
Yeah,
meditation with us. And then
sure.
for anybody who'd like to stay on after the gathering, we make it available. We'll hang out for a bit. So you're welcome to stay after and have some more time with all of us and with Richard. But anybody else for now, would you like to ask Richard a question about yourself, your chart, about anything we've talked about, or have a comment you'd like to share?
Just a quick question, Richard. If you
Hmm.
don't know your time of birth,
Hmm.
how accurate would a reading actually be?
Oh yeah, I do it with whatever you got. Okay, what it just means certain things I don't talk about, and certain things I may ask a question or two. Do you feel this way or do you feel that way? And so if you know absolutely nothing, it's a 24-hour window, right? Then I focus on the more slow moving planets. But I've done total readings, including relationship. You have a different emotional nature. You have all these things that are different, and yet you're attracted to each other. So what is possible, and what are the pitfalls? You know. But anyway, back to yeah, I can do a full reading with because understand something. I learned a long time ago that it's at least it's at least partly a psychic reading. When I was just getting going pro in the mid 70s, I had to find out what makes it work. Sometimes I'd feel fried after a reading, and I didn't even know if I gave them something good. But I finally realized that when I feel the chart and almost become the chart like an actor with a script, and I try to embody the chart to make it real to the other person, then it always works. I have a good time, they have a good time, and it hits, and it really mirrors them in a way that is satisfying. And so, yeah, we can do readings without a birth time. I like to know the place because that gives me the time zone at least, you know. Um, but yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Because
Yeah,
you see,
that was just
yeah, okay,
lovely. That was just lovely. And what I find interesting is, a lot of what you said, it was like a recognition, a resonance,
yeah,
that we're already carrying this, and we kind of know where we are, and you just really articulated it well. So, which
yeah.
is your forte. Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you. I
Can I, could I say something?
Yes, of
Sure.
course, Joanne. Yeah, well, of
Um,
course. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. I'm always so enlightened, and this is amazing for me at this stage of my life. Um, I'm wondering how I can get readings, arrange
Mm.
readings. And I
Yeah,
didn't hear
my
much
usual.
about, I was late coming, 10 minutes late. I had trouble with signing in, and I
Yep.
didn't hear much about Virgo.
Oh yeah, I didn't really talk much about specific signs
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Virgo's not front and center in terms of the world. It's not front and center right now. Okay, except if you are a Virgo, Pisces is the opposite sign. So Saturn and Neptune are doing a number on you, depending on when in Virgo you are. The late Virgos in particular, and also when you have the Sun in a certain sign, Mercury and Venus are not far away. Okay, Mercury's no more than 29 degrees from
Hmm.
the sun. Venus is no more than 48 degrees from the sun, usually much closer. And so they're often in the same sign. So you might have Mercury or Venus in late Virgo, which would be visited. Saturn right now is in the middle of Pisces, and it's going to head to the end and then come back to the tail end of Pisces. So it's and so and so a Virgo could be affected by that, definitely.
Hmm.
But no, I didn't get into Virgo this time,
No,
even though I'm a
that's
Virgo.
okay.
Um,
Is it significant that Pisces, my daughter's a Pisces and I'm a Virgo?
yeah, sure. Yeah, in fact, by the way, when I have the birth time, the sign that people have on their house of relationship very often is the sign of one or both of the parents. In fact, Kepler, is known as an astronomer, but he was also the court astrologer, and he supposedly said that the greatest proof of astrology is the similarity between parents and children's charts. You know,
Interesting.
and different children will embody either a different parent or a different aspect of the parent. You know, if my father was a gardener as well as a cosmic intellectual, one son might be more one, and one son more the other.
Yeah, and I do have birth
Or
times
daughter.
and places.
Oh, good.
Yeah, through my
Beautiful. Beautiful.
research. Yeah.
Family charts are very, very, very interesting because again, just like relationship charts, it's a dynamic. And if you come from the point of view, as I do, that your child chose you and you chose your child, that your souls who came together in this particular role, maybe you were spouses in a previous life, you know, uh, you know,
Yeah,
and
I
to really
really
look at
believe
it, well,
that.
what do yeah. And really look at, okay, we've had this kind of disagreement about this. Okay, what's the growth edge for her? What's the growth edge for me? Why have we attracted this conflict, for example, or why have we attracted this, what is the best we can be? And all I'm trying to do is to take you to your own higher consciousness. That's all I'm doing, really. It looks it
Right.
looks like astrology, and that is a medium, and it's a great medium, and get you to own all your archetypes. What is your intellect that's different from anybody else's? What's your emotional
Hmm.
nature, and what is it asking of you? What's your aesthetic sense? What's
Right, right.
beautiful to you? What's desirable to you? And put it all together. What's your take on discipline and this other person's take on discipline? And so in relationship charts, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to say whether you should or shouldn't be with a particular person. I'm just going to tell you what it might entail if you do
Right.
hang out with them.
Got it.
Of course, the case of family, you don't really have a choice. You're stuck with each other in family.
That's true. Yeah.
All right, good.
So
And
Richard,
how do I
sorry.
get readings? How
Yeah,
do I
there we
arrange?
go. Share
Yeah.
share your email,
Okay,
Richard, how
okay.
people can get a
Yeah,
phenomenal once in a
I,
lifetime,
I,
or more than a once in a life, but like a special reading that will change your life. I've known Richard for 25 years, and readings
Yeah.
from Richard
mm-hmm.
20 years ago are powerful and meaningful. And then I update with Richard as I evolve, then I can have more insight into what Richard offers me. So it's an incredible opportunity for your own growth and self-connection and to revisit with Richard every year, whenever you need that support.
Yeah, I have some people who come to me every year, usually around their birthday. You know,
Yeah. So your email, Richard?
and yeah, I put it in the chat. I years ago when the famous astrologer Rob Brezhnev was advertising me, I came up with Yum Planet at yahoo.com. I thought it'd
So
be
let's
easy to
so
remember.
let's spell that out for when I do an audio version of this on my
Yeah.
podcast and no one can see the chat.
Okay.
So slowly
Okay.
spell out your email so
Okay.
everyone can get in touch with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yum Planet. Planet. All small letters. Yum Planet at yahoo.com.
Excellent. Thank
I use
you.
that particular. I use is just for clients.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Uh,
Oh,
it's
awesome,
so
Tanya. Awesome,
how
Tanya.
can I put
Yeah.
it? That Yeah, yeah, my put it this way, when I was at Brown University, my degree's in creative writing, like Rob Brezhnev, but I did a whole independent work tying in Western humanistic psychology with Eastern religion and philosophy, two different models of self-realization. One is about how to become an individual self. That's the Western thing. Listen, and the other is about how to attune to the highest fulfillment that the cosmos is offering you and how to be in tune with the universe and what it wants for you. And I combined the two, which really was the foundation of what later kind of became New Age, philosophy, the tying in of how to realize yourself as an individual, which was more the Western thing, and how to connect yourself to the supreme source that wants to give you a totally happy life. And so that became the foundation. 2 years after I graduated from Brown, I became a professional astrologer. Very lucky, found the vocation very young, you know. Then that became the foundation for how I do a reading. I do a reading to inspire you to know your own voice and to know that your own voice was given to you and is totally supported by the universe and trying its best to give you a fantastically satisfying life. That is the foundation. And every chart is perfect. Okay. Every life is meant to work. Each of us has that inner knowledge that astrology triggers, that knowing that allows each of us to be a creator and a creature, and to have a deliciously satisfying life. That is the motive behind everything I do, is to support you in that.
Oh, awesome, Richard. Magnificently said, as always. And a reading from Richard is also an incredible gift to give to your friends and family. I've done that, and
Yeah, I
clients of
can.
mine have done that. You can arrange it with Richard, and it's a beautiful gift to give to someone. So, what was that, Richard?
And
Sorry.
yeah, I was going to say that, I'm always flexible to what the client wants, but ordinarily I just send you a bunch of recordings. They're 13 minutes each because they're easy to um, send. And usually four of them is a reading, which ordinarily is 150, and for us today it's 125. Um, and um, and so then you've got the recordings. You can hear them over and over again. And I'm telling you, when you hear it the third time, fourth time, whatever, you're going to get stuff you didn't get the first time, because I'm
It's
loading you
true.
with stuff, and you're going to be triggering realizations, and you won't hear the next sentence because you're being triggered with
Mhm.
realizations. And so you hear it a few times, even hear it like 5 years later. Oh,
Yeah, there
oh,
are
maybe
insights
you
from
weren't
his
quite ready
readings,
at the
as you
time.
said, 5 or 10 years later, just like a magnificent novel or movie, or whatever level of consciousness you're at. There's something in Richard's reading for you. And then years later, you're at a higher level of consciousness, and then you hear it, or has different meaning for you.